there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story, and thanks so much for joining me for this Sweet Peas and Beads bracelet. This is made using very simple sizes of jump rings, and I'm going to be using size 5 triangle beads in this, so those should be very easy to work with. They're very large seed beads in comparison in the seed bead family. So I am going to be making this particular bracelet in the video, but of course I just want to point out you can make this in any color you'd like to. So just, go through the steps, see what you think, and give this a try for yourself. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to start this chain, I have pulled out all the materials, so you can see that we have our clasp here, and then I have this teeny tiny little jump ring for the end, and that's going to help us when we get to the very end. So I'm going to take this out for now and move the end piece away. I have 19 gauge 5/32 jump rings. I have size 5 triangle beads, which we're going to use. I have 18 gauge 3/16 jump rings, which I'm going to push off to the side. We're going to actually use those last of all the jump rings. And then I have square 18 gauge 3/16 jump rings in both sky blue and lime for this project. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out with 3 jump rings in this 19 gauge 5/32 size. Okay, and I'm just going to lay these out so you can see them. I am going to pull out some beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, just randomly. Okay, and then after we do that section, I'm going to need some square rings, so I'll go ahead and pull out 2 of those. Okay, so to start this out, we are just going to be making a 1x1 chain. So I'm going to take the first jump ring. This one is exclusively to be used with our lobster clasp. That's all it's going to do is hook the rest of the chain to the clasp. Okay. Now my next jump ring is going to have 2 beads. As you can see, I have beads on either side. Now I can pick this up, pass it through this jump ring, and pick up another one, but honestly there's nothing holding this back from situating the beads where I need them. So I'll just pick up 2, pass through the first jump ring, and close. Okay, now, and you can see those kind of split to either side. Okay, now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a jump ring, I'll pick up the bead, and I just like to do it this way. I find it the easiest way. I'm going to pass through this previous jump ring, and then I'll pick up the second bead. This way I've got a bead on either side of this jump ring. You can pick them both up at the same time if you want to, but I find this easier. Okay, and I'll close my jump ring. Okay, so that's our first little segment. Now after this little segment, we want to add 2 square jump rings. So I'm going to add my first color, which is sky blue. The next time I get to this point, I'll add the lime. So I'm just going to pass between the beads. Now I will mention sometimes this gets this is a little tight, and you see I'm ending up below my beads here. So sometimes you have to pick this up just right to make sure that you're coming in on the outside of the beads, and then don't just drop it like I did. Okay, so we'll pass through that jump ring. I go ahead and close this jump ring. May need to spend a little extra time on the square rings. They can be challenging to close just right and get the angle just perfect. That one went pretty well. Just fine tuning. Okay, and then I'm going to add a second square ring. Okay, so again, this is just a 1x1 chain. And later, we're going to come back and we're going to do some work on top of these square rings. So that's why we want to make sure on this first run that we get everything just the way we want it to be. Okay, so now, and this is going to be the same way between every pair of square rings. Now I'm going to take my 19 gauge 5/32 again. I want 2 of those. And then I'm going to pull out 4 more beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And these are going to do the same thing they did on these first rows, okay? We're just going to pick up a bead, pass through the jump ring, pick up a bead, and close. So I'll just mention here, these are really chunky beads to be fitting on these small little jump rings. But the reason we wanted something big and chunky, which makes it a little bit harder to work with when we're closing our jump rings here, is that when the chain is all laid out and you're wearing it, you really want this bead to remain sitting in the center of the jump rings. You don't want them flopping down and losing their position. You want them to be where they are supposed to be in the design. So by using the largest possible bead that we can on a particular jump ring, that ensures that it's going to hold its position when it's on a chain and it's being draped. Okay, so you see I pass through between the beads there. I'm going to pick up another bead. And these, although these are Miyuki beads, the triangle beads can vary in size. So sometimes if you have like a really big one on one side, you might want to choose to use a smaller one on the other side. And you can tell, so see how the height of this one is a little bit less than the one on the other side. You won't be able to see this when you're wearing it, but that's kind of how you can make sure to keep this balanced. Okay, so I've got that done, the little beaded portion. Now I'm just gonna go on to 2 more square rings. And then as I said, I'm gonna change color this time. Now we're gonna go to the lime. So we're just gonna alternate the sky blue and the lime and the sky blue and the lime. And all of those are just going to be sitting between my beaded sections here, okay? Okay, so there's 1, and there's 2. Okay, and then we're, of course, just gonna go back to adding our 19 gauge 5/32 with the beads. Okay, so we'll have 2 more of these silver jump rings and 4 more beads needed in this next section. Okay, and then when we finish this section, this is going to be really a full run. So when we end this chain, we would prefer to end it on a beaded section, if possible. Now, if you are trying to size this just perfectly for someone's wrists and it just seems to be too big or too small, you know, obviously you can start and end on the other sections of the bracelet. That's not really a problem. So if you need to, you can start and end on what will be our sweet pea sections. You may have to change that end jump ring to be a little bit larger jump ring, but you know, really, it's not a problem. Okay, so here is our second bead. See how much shorter this bead is than this one? This one's big and chunky. It's tall, and this bead is not as tall. So this is gonna give me that little extra room to be able to close this easily. If you have two great big beads, then sometimes it can be really hard to get this jump ring closed. So try and keep it balanced. Okay, so this is the end. So we're just gonna keep repeating this and take this to the full length that we want it to be. So next I'm gonna do 2 more sky blue jump rings, another bead section, 2 more lime, another bead section, and then I'm gonna keep going until this is the length that I want it to be. Okay, so I'll pause here and I'll be back to show you more in a minute. Okay, so as you can see, I have the full length of this all ready to go. And I've laid out my little end jump ring, and I have 1 jump ring left of the 19 gauge 5/32. So I'll just show you. I'm gonna go ahead and open this little bitty ring. The reason I have this is because I wanted something small enough on the end here where it's not gonna be able to move around. So the bead won't be able to slide through this because it's much smaller than the bead, okay? And, oops. Let me get a handle on that a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just gonna close that, and then I'm gonna use my last 19 gauge 5/32, and that is going to eventually be used to link the lobster clasp through. Okay, so you can add extra if you want. If you want to make this, you know, kind of interchangeable sizes, you can always add to this chain on the end. But you can see that that just simply got my lobster clasp, and I'll be able to hook through there. Okay, now I like that we start with the clasp. So we start out with the lobster clasp, and we know we're going to be working on right-handed. So I'm going to be working from right to left. You can turn it around and do it the other way if you're left-handed, if you prefer to. And with each of these square wire segments, we're going to add 4 jump rings total. And now I have my 18 gauge 3/16 jump rings out. And by using a combination of the square jump rings with the round jump rings, I've brought the aspect ratio, or AR, down just a little bit, so it's more of a 4. So this needs an aspect ratio of 4. If you don't know what that means, just, you know, sideline that for a later date. But basically, I want this to fit nice and snug in here. And in order to do that, these rings are just a little bit thicker than the round rings, and it makes it fit tighter. Okay, so I'm just gonna add my first jump ring to the very first sky blue square ring. Okay, so I just kind of hung that off the side. It's just dangling there. And then I'm going to take a second jump ring and hang it off the other side. Okay, so see how this one is over here and this one's going to be sitting on this side. So we're just basically, these are just almost like a shaggy loop. We've got a jump ring hanging on either side, okay, of this very first sky blue jump ring. Now what I'm going to do in the next step is I'm going to add these rings, one on top and one underneath, and they're going to pass through both of these jump rings that I just added, as well as the second sky blue square jump ring. Okay, so I will show you that. Let me get this picked up. Okay, and I'm going to pass through just these rings, so from outside to inside, inside to outside, and see how those are. I'm not passing through either of the blue jump rings. And then I'm going to come down through just the blue square jump ring. So this was the second of the sky blue jump rings. And then I will close this. Okay, you can see what that looks like. Okay, so we got the 1 and the 2. These were the shaggy loop ones. And then this one passed through both of them and then through the sky blue jump ring here. Now I'm just going to flip it over to the bottom side. And you can see that's kind of holding it in place. So I can see the 2 that I'm going to pass through and then the sky blue that I'm going to pass through. So I'm doing the exact same thing, just on the back. And this is what makes our sweet pea component. So through the 2 round rings, and then also through the 1 square ring. And the biggest thing when you're doing this to make sure, let me get this closed, is that when you finish this step, just make sure nothing's wonky. So see how this square ring kind of sits between these 2, and this square ring sits between these 2. Okay, just make sure everything looks even. You don't want to accidentally have like maybe 2 of these silver rings, you know, over on this side. You want to make sure everything's balanced and sitting properly. Okay, and I'll do that one more time. So 1, 2, 3, 4 jump rings. And I'm going to take the first one. I'm going to hang it on the first lime. And you see with the bent nose pliers, I flip them around as needed. If I've got a lot of room, I can use the curved side of it. If I don't have a lot of room, I can use the pointy side of it. So since I'm just hanging little shaggy loops off the sides right now, I've got lots of room to get in there with as much plier as possible, and that helps me make sure I get my jump ring closed really well and straight, and all that is good. Okay, so see how just like before, on this first lime ring, we have a silver hanging off on one side and a silver hanging off on the other side. And then just like before, I'm going to take this next jump ring and I'm going to pass through just the 2 silver rings. And notice I'm letting these dangle down. So when I say first, I could mean top when I say that. Okay, so just pass through the 2 silver. You don't want to pass through either of the square rings yet. And then down through the second lime ring. You notice my work just turns around as I'm moving through, and that's fine. And now I'm using the pointy end of my pliers because I don't have quite as much room. Just a little bit tighter. Okay. And here's the one that I just added. Okay, so see how it passed through the 2 silver and through the second lime green. Okay, and now I'm going to once again flip this over to the back side. And then just like before, I'm going to pass through the 2 silver, through the lime green. Now sometimes this will be the tightest one that you do, so sometimes you gotta let things shift around just slightly so that you can get your jump ring passed through that square ring. Okay, and then I've closed my jump ring, and that's it. Okay, so see these cute little sweet pea sections that we have going on? So they're just simply divided by beads, very simple. Sweet pea is very, very simple weave once you get the hang of it. And I could have done, you know, all continuous sweet peas if I wanted to. I will be having some other versions of this, I have no doubt. I'm actually shocked that I've never put out a sweet pea tutorial before, but I really wanted to, you know, have something to add to it, not just show you the basic weave, but add a little bit of my own flair and design to it. So there you have it, and I'll show you what this looks like when it's finished. And I will mention too, this makes great necklace as well. So, and here is the finished version. Okay, so you see all of these little silver, blue, silver green segments in between the tortoise shell beads, and it's really lovely. This is easy to wear. It makes great chain, like I said, makes great earrings, makes great necklace, makes great bracelet. Okay, so this can do anything that you want it to do. It drapes really well. So sky's the limit with this one. And just one more thing you can do with it is you can just make little sweet pea components, and you can use it to connect different portions of chain with if you want to make, you know, kind of like a mixed media or a mixed weave chain. This is a great weave for that. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you learned to do sweet pea today, and feel free to try this in tons of colors if you want to, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much.